Hey, welcome back to Don't Forget to Tap. This is Chris talking about all things of being new to Jiu-Jitsu for those that are thinking about starting and for those that are kind of newer in their journey. Super excited today to have a very special guest, somebody that has pretty much been my staple and my pillar throughout my Jiu-Jitsu journey, and then I'm excited to share his philosophies and experience. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have my coach, Alejandro Balderas.
All right, hello everybody, and thank you for having me, Chris. Let's get a few things out of the way first. We're not related, we share the same last name, Balderas. I'm from Mexico, came to the States about 14, 15 years ago. So you're gonna hear my accent and some words that I mispronounce, but it is what it is at this point. Hope you don't mind. But because we share the same last name, I was often called Chris Primo, right? Which is, he doesn't know really, but...
Cousin,
yeah. Primo means cousin, and something that happened, or it's very common in Mexico, especially in the north part of Mexico, where my family is from, Monterrey, is that real close friends, we call them primos, even if we're not related. And, some friends' mom, we call them tias, right? And that's how it goes, right? You get, sometimes we go to their house and, you eat with them and you're part of the family, and that's how we get to your friends, right? So the typical Mexican stereotype that we're very friendly, which sometimes is true. But this podcast is about Jiu-Jitsu, so let's talk about Jiu-Jitsu. Been training Jiu-Jitsu for about 7 years. It started back in 2017. At the time we were living, me and my family, in Houston, Texas, where I was looking for something for my kids, and I wanted martial art. Growing up, I did a little bit of karate. Well, not a little. I did like 3-4 years of karate, and I enjoyed the discipline aspect of it. And I was looking for something similar to that for my kids. My son at the time was 6, my daughter at the time was 3. And me and my wife, we visited karate studio. And that's when I realized that karate is not the same karate, unfortunately, that what I practiced. It was more about like afternoon program for taking care of the kids, more of we're gonna put your kid to do their homework, and then they're gonna have 30 minutes of practice. And I'm like, no, I want them to learn how to kick and punch, to get discipline, right? And yeah, they were disciplined, but it was more commercial, more like about the belts, about the tests, and I didn't get a good vibe on the place. And on my way to my work, I saw this place that it was a judo place.
Oh, okay.
A judo academy. And I wanted to try it, right? So I was driving one time, I was with the family. I told my wife, hey, let's go and ask this place. And she was like, what do you want to do? And I said, this judo place. And she was, you mean jiu-jitsu? Like, no, I said, judo. But at that time, believe it or not, I didn't know the difference was between jiu-jitsu and judo. And she's, because there's one that is closer to us, and it's a jiu-jitsu place. And okay, if it is closer, let's go there first. And turned out it was a jiu-jitsu place, and they were very friendly. The kids had their first class, the trial out class, and I was very happy looking at my kids with their little geese and rolling around and pushing each other. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's what I want, right? Exercise, pushing themselves. It was an element of discipline, right? They cannot be, just running around or anything. At the end of their class, it was the beginning of it was going to start the adult class, right? So they asked me, hey, do you want to try it? I said, no, I was a little bit shy, but they convinced me. I tried it, and I fell in love immediately. The first class. And I don't know, if you remember your first class, but I remember very vividly my first class because it was that impactful to me. I had this feeling of, it was 1 hour of me only thinking about what we were doing at the time, at the moment, and not thinking about, other stuff, kid stuff, bills, work. It was just focused on the technique and what was going on, which at the time I didn't know what was going on. And I remember I was paired with a little lady. Well, I said little, but she was shorter than me, probably a few years younger than me, tiny. But she had like a month under for experience, right? And we were doing hip throws the first class. And she threw me effortlessly. And I landed on my side. I didn't break fall correctly. I didn't know, right, how to do it. And it just like, boom. And I said, oh, this is awesome. Stand up. And then we practiced the arm bar. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And it was a lot of, thinking, and I love it. And I said, okay, we're signing up. Fast forward 7 years, we moved to, actually, a year later, we moved to San Antonio, and we found Gracie Paja San Antonio. And what I like it was the same vibe, kind of a little bit different, because every coach, every professor put their own signature, their own flavor, and I really like it, and the kids love it, and we've been doing it for quite a while now.
Oh, that's incredible, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Anybody that's willing to open up, and it's funny you say, I don't know if you remember your first class. This podcast is a big reason why I do, actually, because I started this podcast pretty shortly after my first class. So I talked a lot about Professor Juliana was the first person I encountered, and I talked about her sizing me up with a gi and being so nervous about coming into my first class that I drove past the parking lot like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, wow.
Because I was like talking myself into it, and it's just like you said, fell in love with it immediately.
Did you know what jiu-jitsu was?
I had no idea. I knew there was a ground element, but I didn't know the extent of it, if that makes any sense. And I remember Hector was one of the first people I rolled with, and it was just a blast. So it was a good time. One thing that I like to talk about, and you've been doing it for 7 years, and I'm trying to even picture in a year I've learned, I feel like I've learned a lot. I know nothing, but 7 years, and what's crazy is we've talked about it, and you always say, you've been so humble about it. Like, oh, I know, I'm a beginner, I'm nothing. But you're so good at it, too. So what would you say the biggest lessons learned over 7 years? Like, what's some of the big takeaways from that first class to now?
There are several, and there are a lot of cliches in jiu-jitsu. You're going to hear, jiu-jitsu saved my life, which is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that struggle with addictions, with weight management and other stuff, and they found in jiu-jitsu an outlet and friendship and a place where they feel that they belong, and that helps them in those instances. And I'm not different, right? Before jiu-jitsu, I was a little bit hooked in doing Spartan races. Have you heard of Spartan race?
Yeah.
Obstacle racing, and that was kind of my outlet, right? I'm not a runner, and I was never a runner, but I pushed myself to do those races. I really like the obstacle aspect, doing the weight training and, challenge me, doing the, climbing the rope, doing the monkey bars, learning new skills. And but the problem is that even though you can find friends online, groups, and that kind of stuff, it's not the same. You're not close.
No.
In jiu-jitsu, you're close. So that's one of the things that I take every time in jiu-jitsu, finding a place where you belong, and it does help with a lot of your own. It's a mental thing to me. It's meditation for me, and I'm a better father when I come and train. I'm a better husband when I come and train. Otherwise, I'm cranky, right? And you're gonna find a lot of people say the same thing, so I'm not, an oddball there. But another aspect, it's the white belt mentality. And this is something that I use because of jiu-jitsu in all aspects of my life, right? Because something that you said on your podcast over and over, I suck at jiu-jitsu. And we all understand that, and we all say the same thing, I suck. I'm a brown belt now, and I suck at jiu-jitsu. And some days I'm like, I'm going to throw my belt. I don't want to be shown with a brown belt. I cannot do this simple technique or whatever. But the truth is that what the white belt mentality for me has helped me is I now apply it to everything. Like, you want to learn a new language, you look it through like, oh, I'm a white belt in learning Portuguese, and you practice a few months, and you give yourself one stripe, and in your mind you're like, I mean, I'm not nowhere near proficiency in Portuguese, but I'm a one stripe, and you can laugh about it. And you can do the same thing, like, I don't know, if you pick up any other hobby like weightlifting, or you don't have experience, you can apply white belt mentality to it and say, okay, I'm learning. You're doing it 3 months. I have one stripe in weightlifting, 2 stripes weightlifting, and then you commit. What it does is that relieve you of the pressure of achieving something that you're not gonna be good at it, right? In jiu-jitsu, you're not gonna be good at it right away, and it takes years and years, and maybe you never get there, but that's what we all say, right? Which is beautiful, and the same thing goes with any other activity. And if you apply this, always be willing to learn something, even if you don't, if you're not gonna be good at it, but at least you have the desire to try something, right? A lot of times, people don't try new things because they don't want to suck at it, right? They want to, like, they don't learn a new language because it's hard to speak a new language, right? Yeah. And it takes a lot of time to be comfortable speaking to someone in another language, and so they're afraid. But you do need to have those years of sucking at speaking a new language to then be good at speaking a new language. Yeah. And I apply that to whatever I'm doing. Lately, I pick up another hobby, aquarium, fresh fish keeping, and I do the same thing, right? And when I make mistakes in that hobby, I'm just like, I'm a white belt at this, so no problem. Keep going. Yeah. Tomorrow is another day. Yeah. Get back to it, and you learn something new.
Yeah, that's awesome. And another thing that you've given me so many things, so I don't even really want to start with that, but you've given me a lot of things to take off the mats as well. I mean, we've talked about breathing techniques, Wim Hof, you've given me books, techniques, you've given me fitness drills, to kind of help me prep for tournaments, and just good mobility exercises, lots of good just things to have off the mat. When I'm traveling, he sends me videos for like what we're doing for the week and everything, mm-hmm. So I'm not behind, because I travel for work a lot. What are some of the biggest things that you think somebody at my level, at the white belt level, can do off the mats to get better on the mats? I mean, a good weightlifting routine, breathing, stuff like that, but what are some of those key things that you think help somebody?
Well, it's gonna depend on who you are as a white belt. Okay. And I mean, as a person, your body type, and jiu-jitsu is an expression of your body movements, right? You do require a level of flexibility, a level of restraint, a level of mobility. There's an intellect aspect of jiu-jitsu, and all of those things combined it's gonna be your jiu-jitsu, right? Your body, your weight, right? The length of your legs also have an impact on the techniques, right? Lengthy people with long legs are probably gonna be shooting a lot of triangles and getting good at triangles because they have the advantage of the long legs, right? Young fellows are gonna be very flexible and fast, and that's good, right? So I don't want to say that you look at your deficiencies, but look at how you can express yourself better and I mean that in movement, right? If you feel like you're huffing and puffing in the mat, that's when we look into, okay, how you can breathe better, right? And there's Wim Hof method and There's just basic getting into better shape, running outside here. Or if you show up to jiu-jitsu, you're going to get cardio, right? Eventually, you're going to be doing a lot of things in jiu-jitsu. You're going to build some level of strength, right? So it starts morphing you. And you're going to notice that to do something, like you cannot do it at the beginning, you're like, okay, I'm missing something. And then, I'm a little bit weak on this position. So you go to the weight room. I'm a little bit winded. Okay, so let's check out that diet, right? Okay, are you sleeping good? Are you drinking energy drinks and, just eating whatever? Then, because it does show up in the mats. The mats are gonna tell you the truth about yourself, right? That's what I love about jiu-jitsu, right? A lot of people come and they have their egos, but the truth is shown in the mats, right? And if you don't have a good heart, it's gonna show, right? You're gonna quit probably. The same goes to, okay, if I have a bad weekend of not doing anything, watching TV, drinking beer, eating pizza, hamburgers, whatever, Monday I'm gonna suffer. And and everybody's gonna be like that, right? I remember one of the things that happened when I started being more serious about jiu-jitsu, and this is about a year into jiu-jitsu. I was changing my habits during the weekend. Like if I knew I was gonna train on Saturday, I wouldn't drink on Friday night. I would go early to bed, which is like when you're young, you're like you think like, oh, that's normal.
It's a big mentality shift.
Yeah. Just changing, that aspect. But you don't want to, get beaten that Saturday morning. Or if you choose to go out for drinks, then you find yourself missing class, right? And then it's a little bit of balance of, okay, obviously, it's good to find friends outside. It's good to go out for drinks every now and then. You don't want to be so upset with jiu-jitsu that you push away other aspects, right? So just to bring back circle, what would I say to a white belt, right? Yeah. So come and train. Pay attention. Look outside of your class. Look at videos, YouTube videos, instructionals, but don't try everything, right? Just listen and pay attention. Look what applies to you. Fix habits that are not good for you, right? Health-wise. But don't obsess with jiu-jitsu so much that you push away your friends, your family, or that you push away some parts of yourself, right? So you do need to find a balance, right? I've also seen people that get so enamored with jiu-jitsu that they buy the most expensive gis, they buy all the rash guard, they go to all the seminars, and they put everything in credit cards. They're not at their place, they're not with their significant other enough, and then it's hard, right? Because jiu-jitsu gets hard at one point. You're doing it for 1 year is somehow easy. Do it 2 years, that's, maybe 1 year you miss Thanksgiving to go train jiu-jitsu. 2 years in a row, it's going to be tough. 3 years, impossible, really. And so you do need to find, and I think I mentioned it to you one time when I mentioned, like, hey, bring your wife, because the best thing that you could do is make jiu-jitsu part of your life, and by that it's also your life part of jiu-jitsu, so that you don't feel pressure when you don't come, because you do everything else that's going to help jiu-jitsu, and you find friends, or if your family comes. I believe a lot of guys that are here that are more or less the same time that I've been training, 7 years plus, or 6 years or 5 years, are family guys.
Yeah.
Because they bring their kids to jiu-jitsu and it's easier to stay.
Yeah.
if my kids quit jiu-jitsu, which I'm not going to let them, at least not until I can say something, I'll probably find harder to come as often as I do.
Yep.
Because now they're my excuse, right? I bring them to class, I stay for class. And they need something to do on a Saturday morning, they come to jiu-jitsu, I stay for a class. So it helps, it works out.
And I've noticed that a lot. I talked with Bruce, one of the students here. You know, they've made it a family affair for sure. They have 3 generations coming to one class on a given night. And I noticed you and your kids come in as well, and your wife, she supports and helps the school, and your family does so much for the school. And that's one thing that I think you've really shown me. And I think that's one of the biggest thank yous I owe you, is showing me the balance on and off the mats. A lot of people that were giving me advice initially were telling me all the right things to be trying to do on the mats. None of that was working. But the things that I found the most success with were the things to do off the mats that you've given me. And that's been super helpful. So thank you very much.
No problem.
And so, you know, you've been doing it for 7 years, and you've seen a lot of things. I can't even begin to imagine what you've seen in that time frame. I think a lot of people, and you've hit on so many things I could expand on, but for the sake of time, I think this one's really important. What do you think makes a person stick in jiu-jitsu versus somebody that quits? Like, give it a year, 2 years, the blue belt cliche, if you will, of quitting. What attributes makes a person stay in jiu-jitsu versus and ride it out, and that keeps that white belt mentality, or who quits? You know, what's some of the defining techniques that are characteristics you've seen?
Well, jiu-jitsu is for everyone, but not for everybody. I don't know if that makes sense, but a lot of people come and as a white belt or somebody without experience, and they come to the academy with a specific goal in mind. Some come because they want to learn a martial art, which is going to take a lifetime. Those are probably the ones that are going to stay longer. Some come because they want to get in shape, which jiu-jitsu is going to get you into shape most of the times rather quickly. They may or may not stay. Some people come because they need to learn self-defense, right? They're bullying at school. They were victims of some sort of crime or attack or assault. So people come with different agendas, right? And they different needs, and jiu-jitsu it's open for everybody, right? And what we want to do is to teach this skill set, and that's why the fundamental class is very important, because it teaches you what you need to know at the basic level, but in a fundamental way, right? How to defend yourself, how to learn jiu-jitsu, how to get into shape, all of those things. And if you just came to the academy to do that, and you are good with that in a few months, 6 months, 1 year, and you move on, it's perfectly fine. Eventually, maybe you come back, and we hope that you have a good experience, and then you come back, right? But when it comes to people that want to stay and don't stay, like you said, the blue belt cliche of, the blue belt disappears, right? I will refer to, there's a black belt, I don't know if you know him, it's one of the first black belts in America, Chris Hodder. I don't know if I pronounced his last name, but he's under Hickson Gracie, a black belt, and he said something, and I'm probably not going to quote him exactly, but he said, white belts, they come, they go, just like I explained, right? But blue belts quit because life happens. They get another job, suddenly they don't have time, right? They got enough, they quit. They have to move. Where they move, they didn't bother to look for jiu-jitsu, and now it's an hour away, and they're not going to attend the classes, right? So the blue belts quit because life happened, right? More or less. Purple belt, on the other hand, they quit after, just think about it, to get a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, you have invested 3, 4, 5 years of your life. So you have made jiu-jitsu part of your life. It's part of your lifestyle. So purple belts that quit, they quit for a different reason. More often than not, because jiu-jitsu breaks their heart. And this is what this professor Chris Hodder said. And when I was a purple belt, I really felt it. Because you're 5 years into the game. And like you said, sometimes you say, I suck. But it's hard to suck after 5 years. Mentally, it breaks your heart. Like, I'm doing my best, I'm not getting anywhere, right? You know all the techniques. Or not all of them. You know a lot of techniques, and then sometimes it's hard to apply them. Or your body is breaking down with injuries and that kind of stuff. So it gets all right. So when like, I have to come train hard, few months, and then you have to take a couple of weeks off because of injury. So that it's kind of hard, right? And then at brown belt, which I'm just figuring out, right? You're almost there, right? So it feels like you're almost there, but at the same time, it's like, oh crap, I'm almost there. So, and personally, I don't see myself anywhere close to where I want to be as a black belt, right? So I feel like the pressure for a brown belt is continue being humble, continue just relearning all of the lessons, right? So just as the white belt came in with a goal, so restate your goals, right? And change your goals if you need to. Have something in mind. Just like the blue belt needed to make jiu-jitsu part of their lifestyle, check if your jiu-jitsu is continuing a good part of your lifestyle, right? You know, reinvigorate that, you know, fall in love with the sport again. As a purple, you know, you have to be patient. And if you're a brown belt like myself, I guess, and I say this to myself, right, because this is where I am mentally right now, is like, okay, I suck, I need to learn a lot more, I'm nowhere close to where I want to be or what I think I need to be as a black belt, which honestly, I don't know, right? That's going to be my professor's judgment, right? And I trust her. And all I can do is keep learning, keep improving a little bit at a time, being patient about, you know, the ups and downs of jiu-jitsu.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and I've heard that quote before, that jiu-jitsu broke my heart. I've heard that before. I watch a lot of Instagram videos too, and I've heard that. And, you know, I think, like you said, I think you really captured something important. Remember why you started, and I think that why kind of evolves over time, I would imagine, as you get different challenges in jiu-jitsu and everything. And are you doing okay on time?
Yeah,
okay.
Good.
Okay, perfect. And I'll kind of close out because we just finished class. It's relatively late at night, and I want to let him get back to his family. But real quick, one thing that I've always, especially people that are experienced in jiu-jitsu, been doing it a while, favorite technique, your go-to technique. I'm exposing for my own benefit on this one.
Oh, I'm not that kind of player. I've heard like, oh, you're gonna be a blue belt, you're gonna start developing your game, and purple, you're gonna refine your game. I miss that. I never develop a game. If anything, I'm a guard player. But the problem is when you're an older guy, you know, it gets hard, right? You get smashed. But I do enjoy a lot going for techniques that end up in a sweep. You know, even though I like to be on bottom, I like the effortless sweep. Like, I like lately omoplata to sweep, right? Scissor sweep or any kind of sweep that just happens because of people pushing you or the imbalance of that. So I don't know if I have a favorite, but I do enjoy myself exploring for a while some techniques and, you know, sticking with something. That would be something that I would advise to do someone in blue upper level, kind of close to purple, kind of like because this is what happened, right? You get your blue belt and you know a lot of jiu-jitsu, but then you need to learn more. A blue belt is kind of like, I've heard this from other black belts, it's a buffet, right? So you start learning spider guard, lasso guard, de la Hiva guard, or K guard, or you start learning foot locks, and but those are kind of like 2 week project, maybe 1 month project for a blue belt, right? And you're not gonna see the connection of all of the techniques. But when you get to purple, brown, you do need to spend more time, and I mean a lot more time, like 6 months maybe, just working in your open guard, maybe the La Hiva, right? And it's hard to stick with something that you're trying to refine. And like when I was the purple belt, I decided to embark into defensive jiu-jitsu, which means being on bottom all the time in bad position. So I would put myself into all the bad positions: side control, bottom mount, back, and just surviving. I was watching a black belt from Estonia, Preet Mikkelsen, I think his name is, and he has a website, BJJ Defensive JJ, something like that. He teaches a lot of that survival of those bad positions. And at first, I thought it was going to be like 1 month, 2 months project for me. It ended up being close to a year to be comfortable in but that catapulted my attacks and my guard a lot, because when you spend a lot of time being in bad position and surviving, all of a sudden you are not afraid to try new things. Like, you roll for an omoplata, you miss it, you're on bottom, no problem. You know how to survive, you know how to escape, you know how to reverse it. So, I'm sorry, I think I lost my train of thought.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, you kind of captured it, and in fact, you really hit something that I was gonna ask you, and you accidentally answered. I always ask people in the beginning, should you focus on offense or defense? And I really like what you said about putting yourself in uncomfortable positions. I think we all find ourselves in them. It's horrible. You know some of mine that I absolutely hate, because I think you laugh at me a little bit whenever you see me get in them. But I think that those are really important, and it's something I've heard you talk about time and time again, is how important it is to be uncomfortable in those positions, and it kind of forces you to think quite a bit too.
Yeah. At one point you don't have an option.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're a white belt and you're paired with white belts and you start learning, you get a taste of what being dominant is, right? You beat another white belt, you start feeling good, right? And you build an ego. Then you get your blue belt, and then the purple belts are not gonna be as nice as they were, and the brown belts are not gonna be as nice as they were with you. And then you end up yourself being like, I'm in bottom all the time. I'm in this bad position all the time. I cannot reverse them against the higher belts. And I thought I was good, but that was just the white belt class, and just because you're not used to roll with all those higher belts, which are, at the beginning, they're letting you work, right? And which is very important too. When you're a higher belt, one of the things that is very important is to bring people up with you. And you cannot beat people, because you're going to scare them from jiu-jitsu, and we do need people to grow with us. And it's a team sport, like Bruce said in the interview. You cannot be good at jiu-jitsu without the help of others, right? When you compete, it's you against somebody else, but it's all your partners at the same time, right? That medal, when you get a medal or a place in a competition, it's not yours, it's everybody's in the academy, right? So yeah, sometimes you don't have an option. So even if you don't want to be in those bad positions, it just works out that way. And if you are a very athletic person, a dominant person, and you get away with it because of size, it's just gonna take longer to learn.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about why some people quit, right? Some people quit because they're middle of the blue belt, and then they start to get exposed, I guess. People, higher belts are gonna be like, oh, this is very athletic person. He's a blue belt. He's close, so I'm gonna go a little bit harder, and they cannot deal with it because for 2 or 3 years, they got away with it, just beating up the white belt, right? So that's why they say, you leave the ego at the door in jiu-jitsu, which may or may not be true, but because we all carry egos with us, right? And it's not different when you're a white belt as to where you are a black belt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I appreciate that. And like I said, I've said this many times in my episodes, thank you to this whole school. You guys have opened up the possibilities of what I thought people could do for me, what I thought people, just who they were and what they were willing to do for others. And just a phenomenal group of people. But thank you to you personally for just investing me as a person, because not many people invest in you. And so you've definitely, like you said, brought people up with you. And so that's been huge. And I've got to be mindful of his family, like he talked about earlier. That's really important. I'll give you the last word before I close this out with the exit and everything. But any final thoughts for just the podcast or anybody that might listen to this?
I hope you enjoy a little bit of my rambling. I love jiu-jitsu, and even though, as I said, like jiu-jitsu sometimes breaks your heart, I wouldn't change it for the world. It's something that I hopefully can do well into my 80s or 90s, whatever, God willing. And just in the theme of the podcast, don't forget to tap, right? Do it often. Tap often. Restart your position. Just think about it, right? Sometimes we do training and we hold the position so long for so many minutes without really anything significant happening because we don't want to lose, right? And just try something. If you get caught, just tap, right? You're going to do more in a 5-minute roll if you learn to tap quickly. Just try something and then start again, and then start again. Tap, don't forget to tap.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it was a name that ended up being a lot more fitting than I anticipated. So
it's great podcast.
Coach, I want to thank you so much for doing this, for taking the time. We've been trying to do this forever, so this is truly a gift and something I'm very excited to do. Thank you for everything on and off the mats. Excited to come back, train, and continue to learn from you and everything. And I know that you're continuing to grow so you can teach us and pay it forward. And I look forward to sharing many more lessons from him. But if you ever hear me reference Coach Alex going forward or things that we learned, then this is the man, the myth, the legend. So thank you guys so much for listening. And I hope you're training hard. I hope you guys are taking care of each other. And if all else fails, don't forget to tap.